Kvaratskhelia steadying himself! A star in the making. And there's the only goal! Sabiri with it! After 11 years, once again, Milan are the champions of Italy.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I'm Frank Ravello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. I'm laughing because the intro is winding down. So you see you running to the screen and getting ready. I love it.
I was grabbing some water, and then I looked at the time left on the countdown, and I'm like, I got enough time to take a piss. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and be miserable for the whole time, and nobody wants that.
Oh, I was prepared to lead the intro, so I'm glad I didn't have to. So there you go. Ciao, Apex.
Yeah, Apex is in the house. Join us if you're watching us live here. Jump in the chat. Let us know who you are. We've got a good show. We're gonna. Just a little change in how we do the format. We're going to talk. We're going to break down some of the marquee games and the games surrounding the chase for top four. We'll begin with that. We'll talk about then the games that were involving the teams that were in the relegation. I think that Serie A just happened to work out. We're kind of divided nicely. Got Monza Fiorentina in there, which we'll put in the second half, but it was a very exciting game nonetheless. We'll have previews of the second leg of the Coppa Italia, where we've got Inter and Juventus with a 1-1 deadlock at the moment. And then you've got Cremonese and Fiorentina playing on Thursday, a 2-0 advantage to Fiorentina. Plus, we've got big games this weekend. The Milanese clubs are taking on the Roman clubs, where you have Milan traveling to Roma. You've got Inter playing host to Lazio. Big games that could create a little bit of a shakeup in the pursuit of top four.
And before we begin, some shout-outs real quick. Shout out to Interroll Wide and Anthony for having us on his show. Shout out to Roberto and Joe on Low Limit Football for having me on their show as well. And then shout out to Scott Monroe. I'm gonna try to join him for a little Milan Roma preview La Magia cast. So definitely check all those guys out. Follow them. I'll do all that stuff.
Wonderful. Where are my invites to these things? I'm not offended. I'm too busy. So
yeah.
My kids have soccer. Well, that was the running excuse all last year. Why?
I remember.
Jerry gave up on inviting me to come on Calcio Connection because I kept saying, "Well, my kids have soccer. I can't be there." So, and then it was kind of funny because when one of their last ones, like in June last year, when you joined them, I actually had COVID.
I
was watching you guys, and I was like, "Gee, guys, thanks for the invite." And Alex said to Jerry, "Why didn't you invite Frank?" Because and Jerry just went on a rant about me.
That's awesome.
So it was great. Said every time I invite that guy, he's got his kids are in soccer and he can't make it, so I just stopped inviting him.
Hope you're doing well, Jerry.
Yes. If Lazio can keep going, we're going to have to get him on to talk Lazio here soon.
Yeah. So, maybe this weekend coming up. Who knows?
It's good we didn't do it today. So a little bit of a stumble for them. We'll talk about that among all of the games here that took place. We begin with the marquee game of the weekend, Juventus-Napoli, 1-0 to Napoli. Raspadori, the new jack in the box, I suppose, with a goal of the week candidate in stoppage time to give Napoli a 1-0 win and have the teams around Juventus happy that they were all in a position to gain points on them. So that was a massive result for Juve. For the teams around Juve, but it was a massive result for Napoli because it put them 17 points clear, Richard, with 7 games to go. It is all over, but just giving the trophy to Napoli and a 33-year wait will come to an end.
Yeah, it's we've been wondering. We knew it was going to happen all this year at some point because they were just had such a massive lead. And how fitting would it be for them to get it at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium? It would have, I mean, it may have been nice for them if they kind of could have won it at Juve, right? But I think it's better to do it at home.
Sure.
And like Spalletti's trying to calm the crowds, like, hey, calm it. We haven't won anything yet officially, and so they still probably need a little bit of help, I think, from Lazio and Inter. But yeah, it's a fantastic season by them, and what a fitting way to, I guess, put yourself on the precipice of a title with a nice victory against your arch rival.
Exactly. And I think if here in match week 32, should Napoli win, and I believe they've got Salernitana at home next week.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and then Lazio drop points at Inter, then officially the title will be Napoli's with 6 games to spare. A pretty special campaign from Luciano Spalletti's side.
Yeah.
What do you? Let's talk, because let's give Napoli their due here, because they're on the cusp. Before we get into some of these other games, and we kind of talk about how it all relates to Juventus' situation. If you had to pick one thing that stood out for Napoli and why they won this title, because let's just face it, they're going to win it. What's the one thing you can look to over everything? And there's a lot of superlatives here with this Napoli side, but what's the one thing that you think stands out that if they didn't have this, they're back with the rest of the chasing pack?
I think the main thing for me with Napoli, and more so than any other recent winners outside of maybe when Juve were, dominating, is that they were so consistent.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have really a downward spiral. They had maybe a couple games, but that was it. They were super consistent from the beginning to the end, and full credit has to go to Luciano Spalletti for a guy who his teams have always been known to drop, especially like in January and February. His whole team, they kept it level the whole time, the consistent every time. They rotated when they had to. Had deep squad, fantastic. Obviously, some superstars on the team, but the fact that they kept the results levels, every single time, that's impressive. I mean, you could look at the last 3-4 winners of the Scudetto, and every one of those teams had a little bit of dip in form. Napoli really didn't have it, right? They maybe had a couple games where they lost, to Inter and Milan in a stretch, or Lazio in a stretch. So other than that, they've been pretty much flawless, and it's fantastic. And they even showed in the Champions League too. And it just, what a wonderful season by Spalletti. He deserves all the credit in the world for this. I mean, the team is fantastic, but I think it all comes down to Spalletti, and he finally found a team kind of like Pioli last year, where it's just a perfect fit for him and fully deserved for him. And congratulations to Napoli ahead of time. But that's the thing that sticks out for me, is the consistency. How about you?
I like that shout about consistency, because what have we every single time Spalletti has had, whether they get to like he's had Roma teams get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and then they just get battered. I remember, I think it was 2007 to Man United when they lost 7-1.
Yeah.
Where this Napoli side were never rattled. They never wavered. When they faced some adversity and they got beat, they never wavered. They just took a difficult loss in the Champions League to Milan at midweek and got eliminated, and they got right back up and played Juventus and beat them.
Yep.
The old Spalletti teams didn't carry the same kind of mentality. I think it's been said and regurgitated, not just by us, but by others. I know Nima has said this a lot. This is clearly the most talented team Luciano Spalletti's ever had to work with.
Yeah.
So I'll say, it's I think it's low-hanging fruit to point out Kvaratskhelia contributions.
Yeah.
But I will say, having Victor Osimhen, okay, he missed some games here recently, but having him fit for a very large part of the season, and I get there were players like Raspadori, there were players, and you had Simeone at your disposal, but what Osimhen delivers week in and week out, to be able to score, to be able to provide, to have him on a much wider range of games, have him available for selection for a larger number of games than you've had in the past, I think was, I think that stands out too.
Yeah.
To be able to go consistently to that central striker to score goals, because prior to him, okay, and with Saudi, they had Dries Mertens in the false nine, and that worked out for a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
But then tell me, between him and then Osimhen, who's going to probably win Couple Cannonieri here, who was the center forward that you were relying on for goals? I mean, it came from a variety of sources, but then when those sources didn't come through, what did you have? So
exactly.
So I think that having him for a long period, for a longer period of time, and just how quickly the team came together, at I've repeated this so many times on this podcast. At the beginning of the season, I said, this is the team that I think goes through some struggles through the first few games because of all the losses that they had, these guys needing to come together and play a little bit. But my thought was over the last 10 games of the season, look out. This team's going to batter everything in their path and be the hot team for next year.
Yeah.
Fair to say, they're ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
Well ahead of that schedule.
And they keep the pieces together will be the $1 million question, right?
Exactly. And if they don't keep the pieces together, or they're going to get a lot of money for the ones they can part with. Yeah. I mean, you're already hearing some of the dollar amounts that are being bandied about, especially when it comes to Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia. Yeah. But we'll see. I think they just sign Kvaratskhelia to an extension.
Yeah.
So that's locked up, and I think that Osimhen still has some time on his contract, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And then Kyle making a great comment about Min-Jae Kim. We thought this defense was in some trouble without Koulibaly, and Kim has stepped in and taken that responsibility and run with it. So,
I think Napoli are okay if next season, if somehow they can't hold on to Osimhen or Kvaratskhelia, because they got some pretty good depth, right? Cholito Simeone is a fantastic striker. He's not Osimhen level, but he can still produce. And then they got some options. They can play the wing. Obviously, they're not going to be as dynamic with those two missing. I think the biggest piece, if they lose, would be Kim in the back, because there really is no complement for him back there. I mean, Rahmani's back there helping him out, and a couple other guys, but really Kim's the glue back there that holds everybody together. And yes, Di Lorenzo and Rui kind of had these fantastic years this year, kind of helped culminate that back four.
Yeah.
But Kim is such a valuable piece, and I think if he of the three main guys on the team, if he were to go, that would be the biggest loss for Napoli next season. But, hopefully they keep all three pieces and we'll really see what they're made of and see what the rest of the league is made of. Can they match them? Because these guys are setting the bar that much higher than everybody else.
Yep. And I think this is clearly the best we've seen Stanislav Lobotka play since coming over too. I think that has to be said. Constantly putting his name in the team sheet week in and week out has been.
Angisa as well. He's had a breakthrough season for sure too.
Exactly. You could almost make the argument that if it's not for some certain individual performances across some other teams across Serie A, that if we did our team of the season, we could put in this whole Napoli starting 11.
Yeah. You very well.
I don't think anyone would complain.
Juventus.
That's how good they've been. We might put somebody else on the right from another team.
I'm sure Idrissi Milanisi would also complain too. But I think the talent and the production that the Napoli starting 11 have put up is it's unquestionable, and it's very reasonable to say all 11 deserve to be in the starting 11. It's a fair argument to make.
It kind of just it's the team of the season being the whole Napoli side. I think I actually saw that many years ago with Ajax, like in 95 or 96, when they just walked the Eredivisie, and they just
and Champions League, right, that year.
I think it was the year. No, not the year they beat. It was this. It was the year they
beat Milan or lost.
I think it was. It might. It was either the year they beat Milan or it was the following year when they lost to Juventus. That they just completely smashed their way through the Eredivisie, and the people who did the writing for that just gave the regular starting 11 for Ajax was the whole team of the Eredivisie team of the season.
Yeah,
like nobody else could get in. So could have a similar scenario here, but I think that our team of the season will. Right now at least 5. Okay, at least Kim, Lobotka,
maybe
Kvaratskhelia, and then
maybe Moret,
Di Lorenzo probably.
Yeah.
There hasn't been much to be thrilled about it at the right back position.
We're getting close to 11, Frank. We're getting close to 11.
Yeah, we got 5. There's our 5 for sure that are probably locked into this team, at the end of the season. So we'll see what that means to the rest of it. Merritt's certainly in contention, but man, the way Magnan's playing lately, going to be kind of hard to keep him off the team. So Juventus, they lose this match after getting their 15 points back.
Crazy week for them, huh? Crazy week for them.
Yeah, having a cushion over the likes of Milan and Roma and that sort of thing, but now those teams are played back into it, and so let's talk about Juventus after we get through these other games that involved what happened around the top 4.
Okay.
Lazio losing at home 1-0 to Torino on a wonderful goal by Ilic to separate the sides there. Milan 2, Empoli 0, Inter 3. Romelu Lukaku, Big Rom's back, 2 goals, and then he also set the table for Lautaro Martinez to put it away. Great performance there from Inter when you were starting to have your doubts about their ability to suddenly score goals. They woke up and answered the call. Now Milan 2, Lecce 0. Sandro Tonali, our friend Mo, said that was a Pirlo-esque service on that corner to hit Rafael Leao, who headed home. And then second goal, Rafael Leao, with a goal of the week candidate, decided to take the Lecce defense for a run. Smiling as he struck with his, just like he smiled when he put the ball across for Giroud. I mean, that just blows my mind that he's able to do that.
It's the best player to watch is when he's in his stride and he's just smiling. How can you not love him when he does that?
It reminds me of when the Milwaukee Bucks, when we had Ray Allen years and years and years ago. When he'd kind of lead a fast break or get it down court or something like that. He was just smiling because he smiled with that look on his face, like he knew what was happening next, and the other team wasn't going to stop it. Yeah. So, and then Atalanta 3, Roma 1. This is a huge result because this squeezes this title race. Not title race, but top 4. Yeah. There's 5 teams in play for these remaining 3 spots now with this Atalanta win. Mario Pasalic with a goal of the week candidate, volleying home after some great work from Duvan Zapata. Rafael Toloi in the 74th minute. Lorenzo Pellegrini would pull one back in the 83rd, but then a horrific mistake at the back with Rui Patricio, and I believe it was Roger Ibanez in that particular moment, giving Toon Koopmeiners a gift and putting it away for Ladea. So 3-1 there. I think you wanted to talk about the flares in that Atalanta-Roma game before we dive into what everything means for these teams.
Yeah, so the game was obviously at home for Atalanta, and it was a good game by them. I mean, I thought Roma had their opportunities, but Atalanta were just certainly clinical. Throughout the game, you saw flares in the crowd by, I imagine, definitely Atalanta support. I don't know if the Roma support as well. And I know at least once, if not twice, the flares got onto the pitch. Certainly when it was 3-1, I think at that point, flare got onto the pitch and it stopped the game. And I mean, the fans, if they were Atalanta fans, either side of it doesn't matter. You're nearly costing your team 3 magical points. By getting, if they're very close to getting a forfeit. If we've seen in games before where flares from the crowd, interrupt the game. The referee said, "Forget it, we're done." And imagine costing your team, who's trying to team like Atalanta, who's trying to get into the top 4, or just get up in the table as high as they can, and then get ruined by your fans, or even Roma. If it's the Roman fans, like you ruin your chance of the top 4 too by possibly getting your. It was on the Roma end, if I remember, Roma's or Atalanta's goal section. So away from the Atalanta curva. That's how I was thinking the Roma. But yeah, just again, idiotic people trying to mess things up for their teams, and a lot of the times the teams pay for the idiotic mistakes from the fans. And that would have been very unfortunate if that game were to be forfeited and made 3-0 for the other team, because both teams were playing well and both teams had a lot on the line. And you'd hate to see a game determined by that. But luckily, nothing was came out of that. I think the referee was very close to calling that game. Luckily, no other flares came up after that last stoppage. So yeah, hopefully we get things better. But I mean, fans are just hurting their own teams. It just week in and week out, we can't learn from each other.
Yeah, it's got to be careful with how you got to get out there and support your team, obviously, but don't engage in behavior that's going to put your team at risk.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just foolish. Let's okay. So Juventus gets their 15 points back, but then lose this game to Napoli. As we talk about all of this, a couple of incidents in this game, Richard, that as we come back to the Juve-Napoli game. First of all, the incident between Gatti and Kvaratskhelia, where it appears that Gatti strikes Kvaratskhelia, but does not get any discipline for it. And then the Di Maria goal, which is canceled out because of the foul that happened in the buildup. Your takes on both of those incidents?
Eduardo says, seems UEFA wants to ban Juve from UEFA competitions. We'll get to that. Yeah, so the first one, which was the Gatti on Kvaratskhelia, a lot of Juventini were saying that Kvaratskhelia were diving. Some Juventini were saying that he was diving. You look back at the replay, and Gatti clearly is intending to strike him. Like they're saying, oh, it's innocent strike. Like no, Gatti took a full swing at Kvaratskhelia and then struck him in the side of the head. Should have been a yellow at minimum. It really should have. I've seen that called red. But I think for this kind of game, I would have been fine with a yellow because it was yellow at minimum. I've seen some Juventini even say, yeah, that's clearly yellow. It was a missed call by the referee. So I don't know how that was missed, how VAR didn't catch that. And then you go back to, as the game goes on, the game really picked up in terms of intensity, scoring chances late in the game. And it was a play which we thought was going to be the game winner by Di Maria in the 82nd minute, where you see the play coming out of the Napoli or the Juventus defensive end. Milik and Lobotka clash. The ball keeps going down, and Di Maria ends up scoring a wonderful goal, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes back, and referee, they go to VAR, and they say, no, it's a foul on Milik against Lobotka, and lots of people are showing this frame, and I don't have the frame up here, but they said the frame, and it shows that Milik's foot is on the ball. And I'm like, yes, that's true, but if you go back 2 frames, his foot is on Lobotka's leg, and like you're trying to display the angle. If you play the whole video, you can see the whole thing, and it was a clear foul. I don't know what people are so upset about because that was a legit foul on Milik. Completely got the leg first before he got the ball, took him out. So that was a fair call. And then minutes later, you went to score again, right? This time I think it was Vlahovic who scored a goal, and then that was deemed offsides. Just so offsides, but he was definitely offside. So I think the calls outside of the Gatti play were pretty decent in this game, honestly. There were some dives on both ends. Referee didn't fall for it. Overall, I think the referee deserves some credit in this game, especially those 2 calls were spot on. And people want to gripe about it, but Napoli got stronger as that game went on. They had the more dangerous of the chances as the game went on, and you could see the goal was coming. And eventually, Raspadori with a great finisher. What a way to win the game late in the games! But it was certainly a entertaining game despite the low scoreline, and you knew it would be.
Yep. So I agree on all of those takes. That something should have been done with Gatti. Maybe that he's getting away with it because he didn't make contact. So
yeah.
But no, I think the other calls were correct. I think that was clearly a foul on Lobotka, and then I think that the Vlahovic offside. So. Eduardo saying UEFA may want to ban Juventus from competitions. What will happen with that UEFA spot? Well, there's still 4 Italian teams get to go to the Champions League. So my guess is that if Juve finish top 4 and that happens, whoever finishes 5th gets in. And then 6th and 7th go to Europa, 8th go to conference. Would be my guess.
My guess too.
So we'll have to see if that actually happens, because I know that Juve's still not out of the weeds with any of this stuff.
No,
and I think that there was something about the about paying players during COVID. That they're still having to answer for that, and that's still something that's being investigated.
The whole 15 points thing was mostly about the reason they got it back is because they felt it was an unjust sentencing for the 15 points. Like there was no really merit to it. That's why they took it back and they said it needs a retrial. Doesn't mean they're not going to get 50 points ultimately. But it also doesn't mean that they could be absolved. It doesn't mean, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things criminally that I think that's why UEFA is getting involved. They're like, wait a minute, this is legit. If you don't do something about it, we're going to do something about it. So I mean, clearly there's something happening here.
And I've always thought that case was strange because who defines the value of these players, right?
Transfer market.
Well, sure. I mean, but there isn't like a governing body that measures the valuation of all of these players. So, in a sense, and this might not sound pleasing to anybody, there may not have really been anything wrong with Juventus ripping other teams off with their inflated valuations of players that they sold. Right. Okay, it's you could probably say that they weren't particularly ethical, but to say that this was some sort of you have to show me where the violation is, and you got to show me what rule did they break. And then at the same time, when Agnelli's leaving, when all of these officials are leaving Juventus, where there's smoke, there's fire. So something's coming down here still, and I don't think that the old lady's out of the weeds just yet.
For anybody who's ever sold items at a yard sale, right? You try to upsell all the time and try to get the most money for your thing, and what you shouldn't get looked down on if someone is willing to pay that money. Now, when the shady stuff comes in behind the scenes, they do this stuff like, to kind of help each other out financially. That's when, things get a little weird and you start docking some of the documents and stuff like that. And all this other shady stuff that they've been called on. But the whole, the valuation thing, it's a hard thing. Like I said, there's no governing body with it. So who's to say that I don't say this guy's worth $25 million, 25 million euros. And if someone's willing to pay for it, hey, that's not on me, it's on them, right? So I can see both ways on that, but there's certainly a lot of things, like you said, that Juve are found guilty of, and when your hierarchy is all gone, they resign, and so is the former guy, Patriacci. It says something, so we'll see what happens.
The Pittsburgh Steelers just got Allen Robinson in a trade with the Los Angeles Rams. The Steelers gave up only a 7th-round pick for Allen Robinson, a 7th-round pick, and the Los Angeles Rams paying over 2/3 of Allen Robinson's salary next year.
I'm sure the Jets gave up a boatload to get Aaron Rodgers too. So
should the Steelers be docked wins?
Yes, 15 points.
No, that's my team. And then the Aaron Rodgers trade. I think that was what it ultimately comes down to is the Jets gave up a 2nd-round pick this year and what probably will be a 1st-round pick next year. Once you see what the net gain really was for the Packers for a near 40-year-old quarterback, yeah, fine, going to be a Hall of Famer, but the Packers did really well. So but who knows? Okay, so let's come back to Calcio. All right, so Eduardo, I totally agree with you about the salary case. I think this is the bigger problem for Juve, and that's going to unfold. And if they are found guilty of some things, and if there was some agreement in place about paying players, not paying players during the COVID period, and Juve gets caught, then that's going to be problematic. And I think a lot of the evidence is surrounding a WhatsApp, among the players where Chiellini was pretty involved.
Told guys basically to shut up or something, or say you're taking a cut or something to that nature. I don't know.
Right. So we'll have to see. That's the bigger problem for Juventus at this point. So, does Lazio's loss mean that second is still up for grabs? I say yes, but I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, I mean, anything outside of first place is not locked up, and so Lazio are having a great year, but they have these kind of games. It's just historical with them where they out of the blue they lose to something they shouldn't have. And Torino, while they're a good squad, they had no right losing to Torino. So second place is certainly up, especially the way Juve got their 15 points back, the way they're playing. Don't discount now. I mean, you got a few weeks break until the next Champions League game. So Inter and Milan can start focusing on the league again, and they can jump back up on the table too. Roma is still in the mix. Atalanta, they could jump in the mix. So I mean, it's still up for grabs. Lazio are in a good position right now, but I don't see anybody in that top 4 locked up or top 6 locked up outside of Napoli. So
they have trips to both Inter and Milan within the next week. And sandwiched in there is a home match with Sassuolo. They've got to go to Udinese, but then I think the rest of their slate looks pretty clean, pretty easy. They host Lecce in there, they host Cremonese in there. Enough points for them to drop that somebody can catch them. I think that with the fixtures that they have remaining, I think Lazio may. I'm not penciling them in for a top 4 place just yet, but as there's only 5 points separating second from fifth. But looking at the rest of their slate, I think there's enough points for them to grab a top 4 place. Probably not finishing second. I think they'll fall back a little bit. I think that the fixture list might be a little too much for them to overcome, but I don't think they ultimately end up finishing second.
I agree with the second place thing. I think of the 2 Roman clubs, they have the best chance of staying in the top 4. I think they're going to stay in the top 4, but it's a lot of time to play still. The season's winding down, but a lot of fixtures against rivals here coming up. That's going to really tell the tale, and we'll see what they're made of. I mean, they've done well so far against some of the big teams this year, especially Inter, right? But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be certainly entertaining.
Yep. And I mean, the match at Udinese might be motivated because if Juventus something happens where they're knocked out of Europe, then eighth goes to the Conference League, and Udinese's 2 back of Bologna for 8th. Fiorentina's 2 back, Torino's 2 back. So suddenly that position becomes very, very interesting. Milan now is in 4th, and I think that is based on goals scored. Because right now, and head-to-head with Roma, it's 2-2. Their goal difference is both plus 14. So are you confident that Milan are going to be able to navigate both Champions League and secure top 4 here this season?
I think because there is a 3-week window or 2-week window, at least a 3-week window, I think, between this game and the last Champions League game and the next game, they're going to have enough time to refocus in the league and kind of get back into a comfortable position, a more comfortable position where they can navigate it. So yes, I do think they'll be able to navigate the 2. Especially, we'll see what the first leg what happens in the first leg, right? If they somehow get blown out in the first leg, they're going to focus all their eggs into the league. But I certainly think they can, especially with this next few weeks. They're going to have enough time to kind of get some points back that they kind of lost there during that one stretch in February and March.
Yeah, I think so too. It's going to be, but they might arguably have one of the tougher run-ins.
Yeah,
because you've got the semifinals here with Inter. They travel to Roma, and then they host Cremonese at midweek, and then they host Lazio. So at least they host Lazio. In between those Inter games, they're at Spezia, then they host Samp, and then they're at Juve, and then they host Hellas Verona. So you've got a mix of teams that you're battling for top 4 with, but then you're also playing some very desperate teams trying to stay in Serie A.
Yes.
So I can argue that Milan have the toughest schedule of these teams the rest of the way. If I look at Roma, I'm pulling them up right now. Roma have Conference League. They host Milan. They're at Monza. And then let's see how this. And then they host Inter. So that's crazy. That's how the Milanese and Roman clubs are intertwined. I mean, really, over the next week, Richard, there's some potential for separation here.
Yeah.
Because of these games that are happening so close together. Sandwiched in between the Leverkusen games for the Europa League is a dangerous trip to Bologna.
Yep.
Then they host Salernitana at Fiorentina, and then hosting Spezia. So I would prefer Roma's run in over Milan's. At this stage, what do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. The Milan's fixture certainly seems more daunting. But I mean, like you said, even the relegation battles are heating up right now, and they're all playing well for the most part, and so it's not going to be easy for Roma as well. But I think that I would prefer Roma's schedule to Milan's for certain. Yep, most definitely.
And then we talked about Inter. Inter have the second leg of the Coppa here tomorrow against Juve. Yeah. We'll talk about that a little later. Then they host Lazio on Sunday. So there's a dynamic there. And then at Verona, hosting Inter, and then they've got the Champions League games, and then in between that is a bogey team for them, Sassuolo, coming to the San Siro.
Yeah.
Then they're at Napoli, hosting Atalanta at Tony. I actually take it back. Inter's got a much tougher run in than Milan do.
I mean, at that point, Napoli would have the title already, so they'd probably be playing with backups, I would imagine, but maybe not. Maybe they want to, score as many points as they can. The way the 2 through 7 is cannibalizing each other, they might have a 20, 25 point win at the end. It's all said and done. So who knows?
Yep. And then there's Atalanta, who's now suddenly in this thing after that win over Roma. Only 4 points out of fourth. They're at Torino on Saturday. That's actually an interesting game. Hosting, and they've got no European distractions. So they're similar to Lazio in that vein. They're at Torino. They host Spezia. Then they host Juve at Salernitana, hosting Verona at Inter, and then hosting Monza. If they can, they've just been flaky enough, but I don't hate Atalanta sneaking into this top 4, and based on that run-in, it would not surprise me if they grabbed a spot.
That would be something, wouldn't it? That would be something if that were to happen. Because like I said, Duvan Zapata played like a madman in that game, and Paslic's starting to come around as well. Koopmeiners is having a pretty consistent season. That's not out of the realm. I mean, this Atalanta team is that talented. It just, like you said, they're flaky, and so you can never know what to expect with them. It's probably a team you don't want to bet on because you never know what the hell's going to show, what team's going to show up. But they certainly are capable, and that run-in is not the worst for them to do that. So, do you think this game with Atalanta for Roma was a trap game, even though it shouldn't be because it's a quality opponent who's vying for the top 4? They played so well in that Leverkusen game, their Feyenoord game to get that victory, and then they go up to Atalanta kind of like lay an egg. And granted, Gasperini and Atalanta deserve a lot of credit, but it just seems like Roma they just were missing something in that game, and I don't know if it's like a trap game for them unnecessarily or what, or just Atalanta were just that good.
I think Atalanta were that good.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to ask a team that plays 120 minutes to in order to qualify for a semifinal place and have to turn around and play a team like Atalanta. So that's where I think Juve, we should mention their run in here too.
Yeah.
Second leg of the Coppa tomorrow with Inter, as we mentioned. Then they're at Bologna on Sunday. Not a pushover. Hosting Lecce, at Atalanta. Then they've got the Sevilla games. They host Cremonese in between that. At Empoli, hosting Milan at Udinese. Decent.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a schedule I wouldn't hate to have for a run-in. So I'd argue right now that Inter and Milan probably have the toughest run-ins at this point. Atalanta might have the easiest. And then, Roma, Lazio, Juve are kind of somewhere in between.
Yeah. Fair shot.
So with all of that information, put you on the spot. Fill out the rest of the top 4. Napoli win the title. Who's second? Who's third? Who's fourth?
Oh, my goodness. That is tough. I am going to...
It's crazy. I mean, seriously, you got 9 points separating second from sixth. So it's a really tough call.
I'm gonna say, and this is in no particular order, but I think that the top 4 that we have right now is the top 4 that's going to be at the end of the season.
Okay.
Not in that order necessarily, but I think those 4 teams.
Lazio, Juve, Milan all stay in the top 4.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm gonna knock Inter out. I think the fixture list is too tough. Kyle's going exactly in the order that's original, Kyle. Great job.
Yeah.
We like having you. We like having you, Kyle. Just as it reads. Anthony's going Napoli, Milan, Juve, Lazio. So I think do you guys think that Juve survived this and stay in there?
I think Juve has a better chance of surviving than Lazio.
You do, huh? Okay. We said that Lazio, it's tough enough for them. I mean, road trips. Yeah, it's Napoli. Okay, Apex is saying Napoli, Juve, Lazio, Milan. 1, 2, 3, 4. That Juve will catch Lazio and grab second.
So the question for you, Frank, does anybody outside of that top 4 right now make it in? Meaning Roma, Inter, Atalanta. You already said Inter.
Wow.
Now.
I'm going to say no to Inter. I think the fixture list is too tough,
especially if they go to the finals of the Champions League.
Yeah. I'm going to go with. Wow. This is going to okay. I'm going to go Napoli, Milan, Lazio, Atalanta.
I knew you were going to say that. Right on. Okay.
Just for fun here. Okay.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Yeah.
Just to be different. And I'm not trying to do this quick react to.
That would be something. That'd be one of the stories this season if they make it to the top 4.
Atalanta don't have Europe. Neither do Lazio. They can focus on these games. Atalanta's got a very manageable fixture list. You've got the Milanese and the Roman clubs are going to cannibalize each other. Juventus have to deal with some of these teams. And I think that 2 through 5 all in a way, or 2 through 6 all in a way having to deal with each other is going to lead to Atalanta working their way up and snatching fourth. I don't hate the idea of them being in. And I'm also knocking Juve out of this picture because of what Dino's asking about, which is what Eduardo asked about. So Eduardo wants Inter. Eduardo's going to put Inter in there, says Inter's going to overcome all of it. So I've got. So what did I say? I said Napoli, Milan, Lazio, Atalanta. Yeah. So, I'll preface this by saying either one of Juve or Roma is going to win the Europa League to grab a seated spot in the Champions League.
I mean, Kyle's not wrong that like Roma's way into the Champions League might be the Europa League, which is very, very doable. And then for Inter, same thing. Their way in might have to be the Champions League. And we said this last week that it's a one-game affair in the Champions League final. It's possible. Or wait, I think we said on Inter Worldwide, it's possible, right? It's possible to one game off. If it's a 2-game series, you're going to have to go with Real or Man City. But one game, anything can happen. I mean, Porto, 2004.
Yep. Eduardo, are you asking, so who's winning the Champions League, Inter or Milan? Milan. It's in their DNA.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
It'd be a story either way if either one of those teams won.
I mean, this is a great exhaustive breakdown of these teams and looking at their run-ins and trying to put it together and make sense and determine a realistic path. I like it. So, but let's move on because we should talk about the 6 Italian teams qualify for the Champions League. No, it's not going to be more than 5. And I think that's a rule that UEFA has, that there can't be more than 5. So, but let's move on because there are 5 other games, and it's getting kind of interesting with the relegation fight. There's a couple of teams that probably it's a little bit out of reach for them, but the battle for who falls to 18th is getting pretty interesting.
It is. Like the Undertaker, Hellas Verona are back from the dead. On Friday, they won against Bologna 2-1. Goals from Verdi, 2 goals by him. First in stoppage time in the first half. He gets a penalty, a questionable penalty in my opinion. But Verdi scores there. And then in the 62nd minute, he scored again, made it 2-0. Bologna would get a late goal of the week candidate by Dominguez in stoppage time, but not enough. Verona win 2-1, and they're right in the mix for getting out for survival. Moving on to Saturday, Salernitana hosting Sassuolo, and the scoreline was completely opposite what I expected, but maybe I should have expected better. Salernitana 3, Sassuolo 0. Goals from Pirola, nice doubleheader in the 9th minute. Buladia in the 20th minute, nice play by Salernitana for that goal. And then a goal of the week candidate, a wonderful team goal by Salernitana, ended up by Koulibaly in the 65th minute. 3-0 again at home against Sassuolo. Big points for them in their hopes for survival. Moving on to the Battle of Liguria. Sampdoria hosting Spezia. Goal scoring will start in the 23rd minute by Amioni. Verdi would score a nice goal in the 59th minute. That would be all the goals in the game. This is a very entertaining game for a relegation 6-pointer, if you will. But obviously it's a derby. That's what you're going to have. Moving on to Sunday. Sunday we had probably one of the most entertaining games of the weekend. Monza hosting Fiorentina. Goal scoring would start in the 8th minute. Kwame with a nice header. Fiorentina get a nice lead. 5 minutes later, Saponara with wonderful patience right in front of the goal, 1-on-1. Makes it 2-0. Fiorenina's walking away with this. Look at this. Nope. Hold your horses there. First, Samardzic with a... Excuse me, Samardzic. I'm in like wrong kind. Baraghi gets an own goal for the Monza. Makes it 2-1 at that point. And then in the 43rd minute before halftime, Mota would get a goal. Makes it 2-2. You're like, what is going on here? They completely blew that lead. And then to make insult to injury, penalty against Fiorentina. Pessina steps up, scores the goal in the 59th. Monza win 3-2 against Fiorentina. Monza just proving they're the real deal this year. That's what a storyline for them this year. Speaking of a team that's having a storyline, at least at the end of the season, maybe Udinese 3-0 against Cremonese. Cremonese, they're dead and done, aren't they, Frank? It's they've been struggling here, not really performing like the other teams have been. Samardzic with a goal of the week candidate, wonderful outside of the shot in the 2nd minute. Nahuan Perez, in the 27th minute, made it 2-0 within the first half hour. And then just 10 minutes later, Isaac's success with a nice solo run to make it 3-0 before halftime. That'd be all the goals they would need in this game. Udinese won easily in their game. And then that's my batch because, the rest of the games were all top tier teams. So where do you want to start?
Let's look at the. I'm pulling the information on the teams from 14th to 18th because I think Cremonese is down. I think Sampdoria is down. My opinion about Sampdoria, though.
Okay.
I hope that I like Dejan Stankovic as a manager.
Yes.
I thought he was doing some good things at Crvena Zvezda, and this was a very, very difficult job to take and to agree to take. I hope that, and maybe someone like Vitor Doria can reach out to us or something like that and explain it. But I'm hoping the plan here was to bring Stankovic in, understand that his job's safe whether they get relegated, and that he gets the opportunity to build this team in his vision and rebuild it. And if he has to rebuild it in Serie B, then so be it.
I think we were saying the same thing for Shevchenko in Genoa a couple years ago, and it didn't happen. So I hope for everyone's sake that Stankovic does get to keep the job. But it seems like some of these clubs that are like the Horsora clubs that never get relegated, when they get relegated, they just want to clean up shop. And I hope Stankovic stays in there because I think he's good for them. I really do.
Yep. And then as it pertains to Cremonese, they got started a little too late here. There's some decent talent in their team. It's just it took way too long to come together. Yeah. So for me, it's they're done and dusted. So I looked at these remaining. Let's look at the run-ins. We're gonna go. Let's start with Salernitana, 33 points right now. A much-needed win over Sassuolo, but not out of the weeds, in my opinion, at Napoli in what's going to be a title clincher on Saturday. And then midweek, hosting Fiorentina. At Empoli, hosting Atalanta, at Roma, hosting Udinese, at Cremonese. Ouch.
Wow.
They better find a way to get some points just to make sure they're secure. I think that's probably going to just intensify how important this win was over Sassuolo. Because there are some very dangerous games here for them down the stretch. I mean, realistically only I would think 3 points for sure. 36 might be safe.
They're going to get blown up by Napoli, aren't they, this weekend?
They're going to get it handed to them. Yeah. That's at the Maradona, and Napoli have probably already scored 2 goals before Salernitana even get on the pitch. So
that's true.
I mean, I think that's an epic beatdown because Napoli's going to want to do that, turn it over to the Inter Lazio and let them drop points and then clinch this title, and so they can put it and cruise the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So Salernitana's got a difficult run in, but might have enough points where they're okay. Empoli go to Sassuolo, going to go to a very pissed off Sassuolo. after what happened against Salernitana. Then they host Bologna. They host Salernitana. So that's going to be an interesting game. Then they're at Samp. Then they host Juve, at Verona, hosting Lazio. So it's not all that easy for Empoli either.
Yeah.
Lecce host Udinese. They're at Juve. Let's see. And then they host Verona. That'll be a huge game. That's on May 7th. And then they're at Lazio, host Spezia, at Monza, host Bologna. That's not terrible, for their survival prospects. Spezia host Monza. They go to Atalanta. This is one of the teams that I thought was prime. Then they're at Cremonese. They host Milan, at Lecce, which we think is going to end up being a really big game. Host Torino, and then they're at Roma. So some games in there where Spezia are going to be dealing with some teams that are going to be fighting for their lives. Now Verona are at Cremonese this Sunday. Okay, they win that. Which I think they will.
Yeah.
This gets even more interesting. But then they got to host. They host Inter at midweek. Then they travel to Lecce. Verona must. I think 6 out of 9 points. If they lose to Inter, win the other 2 games, I think they're in a really good position on 32 points.
Agreed.
If they get there. Then they host Torino, at Atalanta, host Empoli, and then they're at Milan. Doable for them to get out.
Yes. For
me. I think Salernitana still remains in this conversation despite being 7 points clear of safety, mainly because of that run-in. There's a very good possibility that they don't get the points required to stay up, and that there's enough games between these teams that could make this really interesting. Knowing that run-in, do Verona get out, and at whose expense do they get out for?
That's almost as tough as the top 4, right?
Yeah.
I kind of hope it's Spezia. No offense to any Spezia fans right out there, but because Buladia and some of these guys can go to other places. But I have a feeling, and I hope it's not the case, but I have a feeling it's Lecce. They've kind of been on vacation mode for the last month or two, and they've been dropping points. They were comfortably mid-table, and now they're just dropping, and they can't stop. It's a free fall for them. That's my fear. I think Lecce somehow get into the mix and they get relegated. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's Spezia out of Hellas's expense, but we'll see. I mean, it's tight. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so Lecce is currently 2 points ahead of Verona.
And they play each other very soon.
Okay, so let's look at Verona. Okay, at Cremonese win, right? 3 points. Okay, hosting Inter loss.
Yeah.
Okay, at Lecce. Oh,
that's what I mean.
Let's just say draw. Okay. For hosting Torino.
It could be a draw.
Draw 5. At Atalanta loss. Hosting Empoli win. I think they'll beat Empoli.
Yeah.
That gives them 8 points, and then at Milan loss. So 8 points for Verona. Okay.
34.
Lecce. Yep, 34. Okay, Lecce. Hosting Udinese. Draw?
Yeah, probably draw.
Okay, because they've been decent at home.
Yeah.
At Juve, loss.
Yeah.
Verona, we already said draw.
Yeah.
At Lazio, loss.
Yeah.
Hosting Spezia.
Draw. I don't know.
Draw? On their form? Probably.
Yeah.
3 points. At Monza.
Loss.
Hosting Bologna.
Loss.
Okay, 3 points. So we think Lecce is going to get 3 points on the run-in, and that will put them on 31.
Wow.
We gave Verona, what did we give
8.
Verona? 6? Or we gave
8.
8. So we put them on 34. Okay. So it's that's a very realistic scenario.
Yeah.
But just for fun, Spezia's in this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's pull them up.
Why not?
Okay, because we're putting Lecce on 31 points to finish the season. We're putting Verona on 34 to finish the season, so Verona is safe. All right, Spezia right now are on 27.
Yeah.
They next host Monza.
Loss.
At Atalanta.
Loss.
Okay. At Cremonese.
Ooh, that's a win.
Okay, 3 points there. Hosting Milan.
Loss.
Okay.
Could be a draw.
At Lecce, we gave that a draw, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 1. So that's 4 points for them. Hosting Torino.
I want to say it's a loss, so I can see a draw.
Let's give them a draw.
All right.
Okay, and then at Roma loss. So that would put them on 32. Okay, so we think it goes. We think, okay, and so Spezia is prime, certainly. But right now, the way we look at it is that Lecce is 18th on 31 points, Spezia is 17th on 32, and then Verona will get to 16th on 34.
Yeah, wow.
Okay,
wow.
So, and, based on that, we think, Salernitana and Empoli are safe enough. Because Salernitana ought to be able to get 2 to 3 points that would keep them ahead of Verona, or at least, 33, we said 31's 18th place. So that pretty much means by default, Salernitana and Empoli are safe.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so here at Serie A Sit Down, we think Lecce is going to be 18th.
Oh, man. Tough. I like that team a lot, too.
We got our friends there, too, Lecce fans, UK, and they're not going to like hearing that.
I know.
So, but we're looking at
guys,
form.
The benefit for you guys, every time we pick a Lecce has won. So that's the benefit you guys have to look forward to.
Now, we said Lecce Spezia was going to be a draw. So it's really, I think, so we've basically made the case here that Spezia 32, Lecce 31. Lecce Spezia basically decides who goes down with Cremonese and Sampdoria.
Playoff game.
That's how we're laying this out.
Wow.
So, wow.
I will definitely watch that game now. Now that we put it on the line,
Yeah, we're telling you, May 20th, 8 o'clock in the morning, my time, 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern. Is that a Sunday? Yeah, that's a Sunday, isn't it? Or is it Saturday?
Oh, too far ahead. It is May 9th? The 20th.
May 20th.
Saturday. It's a Saturday.
Some other doing it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see why they're doing that. Okay. So Saturday, May 20th, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central is the game that's going to decide 18th place, Lecce and Spezia.
Yeah.
We think Verona's getting out and on the form that they're in.
Yep.
So,
wow.
So Salernitana should be happy with that 3-0 win because that probably secured their safety. Empoli has done enough. They're going to be the hit the beach team the rest of the way.
So basically, we think 32 points wins it. You survive.
We think 32 is the cutoff. 32 will definitely survive. Now, if Lecce wins that game against Spezia, they finish 17th on 33. Spezia finish 18th on 30. So 32, 33 is going to be the survival number. So Empoli are already there. Salernitana are already there. So here on Serie A Sit Down, we worked that out for you. But watch the games anyway because it's going to end up being totally different. Something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you're drinking beer, I'm drinking water. I mean, when I'm drinking beer, you're drinking water. We got to get that sorted out.
It happens. So. Oil and vinegar.
Goals of the week.
Goals of the week. All right. I guarantee ours is going to be different. First, number 5 for me, Dominguez, his chip goal.
I like that. Yeah.
Consolation goal, but it was a nice goal. So I like that. Number 4 for me, team goal by Salernitana. Yes, I said Salernitana. Koulibaly's goal. I thought it was a lovely play by them. Number 3, is Lukaku back? He might be back. His second goal was a wonderful one-on-one by him. A nice placement on the shot. Number 2 for me, I am going to go Juventini, cover your ears. Raspadori's winner. And late in the game to basically give themselves a title, basically. So that's number 2 for me. Number 1, what is number 1? Well, something we didn't talk about. Roma's Primavera team won they won the Primavera Team Cup over Fiorentina, the reigning champions. And my goal of the week is from that game. Yes, I said the Primavera game is my goal of the week. It was a lovely team goal by Roma. Misitano scored the goal, assisted by Cassano in extra time. Roma win 2-1, but that is my goal of the week. Misitano from Cassano from Roma Primavera. Boom.
Is that Cassano Jr.?
It might be. I don't know. I don't know if it is, honestly. It doesn't look like it.
Oh, okay.
It could be, though. Never know.
Yeah, so because I don't have that on there by default, it's different. But my goals of the week, in at number 5, Mario Pasalic's volley after the nice cross from Zapata. I will footnote this. I had a hard time leaving off Diaz's goal for Salernitana. I had a hard time leaving off Dominguez's goal for Bologna as just 2 examples that I was trying to. And then also Isaac Success's counter and curler. I should be
that was nice too.
Should be given a mention too. But the Pasalic Valley comes in at number 5 for me. At number 4 for me is going to be Ilic's winner for Torino over Lazio.
Yep.
From distance. In at number 3, Big Rom with the second goal, as you mentioned. Wonderful individual effort from him. In at number 2, it is the late winner from Raspadori against Juventus through the wickets of Szczesny. Was Szczesny, right? Szczesny's back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good to have him back too.
And goal of the week for me. Take him on. Let's go on a run, boys. Rafael Leao, just going the distance again, going on a foot race and beating the Lecce defenders, and big smile on his face as he scores the goal and puts it away. And I'm a homer, and so what? Get your own podcast if you don't like it. Rafael Leao's solo goal is my goal of the week.
For what it's worth, last year his MVP season, 11 goals, 6 assists. This year, 13 goals, 4 assists.
Things haven't really changed all that much, and he is heating up. He is heating up at the right time for Milan. So,
yes.
So we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on. We've got Coppa Italia on the brain. 1-1 in the first leg between Inter and Juve. So a big game tomorrow, Derby d'Italia, to determine who goes to the final.
Do they have away goals in Coppa Italia?
I think they still do.
I thought they still do.
I think they used them last year. I think they still do. There's a good way for me to find out. Hold on.
Who was the home team last game?
Juve.
Okay.
So the game is at the San Siro, and it does not show
lead.
Okay, usually I don't think they have it now, because there would be like a little on SofaScore. There'd be a little marking over who would have the advantage after the first leg, and they're not showing one. So, so Inter and Juve. Fortunately, Romelu Lukaku's suspension was overturned.
Yes,
and that he will be available to play in this game. I thought that was
ridiculous,
necessary. Cuadrado still suspended. Handanovic still suspended. Clearly, Inter can live without Handanovic. They've got Onana. Juve may be able to live without Cuadrado. May not need him in this game the way this tactically sets up. It should be De Cilio in that right wing back position to probably deal with and confront Fede DeMarco to try to prevent crossing, to try to prevent certain playmaking elements that DeMarco does from the wide position. I think that De Cilio is going to get called on to do a lot of that. So other than that, I think this is going to be two teams that enjoy not having the ball and play better in counterattacking situations, and possession. The possession situation with both of these teams is going to be really ugly when they're in those particular environments. What do you see coming out of this game?
Unmute myself here. It's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a feisty game for sure. We saw how the last game ended in fireworks. Certainly, when you have the Derby d'Italia, two heated rivals, it's going to get that way, right? I'm glad to see that Lukaku's was ban, whatever, is rightly reversed, because it was not justified to call the card that he got and whatever. So what I expect, though, I mean, you got two cup managers here too that know how to play these kind of games. It's difficult because I think Juventus have been playing so well here the last 2-3 months at least, for a long time too. But I kind of like, Inter's going to be at home. The tifo is going to be fantastic. It always is at San Siro for either team, and I like the way Inter have been playing, not only in Coppa Italia, but just in cup games in general. They just rise to the occasion, and I feel that they're going to – I mean, we saw what Lukaku and Lautaro did this weekend. They're almost back to Lukaku is. Maybe Lautaro is still too early to tell, but they look like they're starting to get the stride back. They're starting to score goals now. I think Inter could win this game. It'd be it's gonna be a tight game no matter what. I think it'd be a tight defensive game. You won't see more than 3 goals total in this game. I think maybe a 2-1 scoreline here. But it's gonna be a chess match between Inzaghi and Allegri. You got a lot of people cancel each other out. You mentioned already De Cilio and Di Marco. and some of the defenses with the attackers. Yeah, it's going to be a feisty affair. I think it's who's going to want the ball. Who's going to let what manager is going to give up the ball. They're both are, like you said, their strengths are counterattack. It's hard to tell. I mean, I'm going with obviously Inter in this one in a very tight game, but it's still I can't even imagine who's going to have more possession of the game. Probably Juve, I would guess, but anything's possible. But for me, Inter wins.
I go with that, but I think it's going to penalties.
Okay.
I'm going to go 1-1 regulation stoppage, and I think it's going all the way to penalties. I think that these two teams play each other so tight that there's not going to be that kind of separation. The way that Inzaghi will set it, they're both, Allegri and Inzaghi are kind of built as good cup managers. And I just think there's a lot of things going on tactically between these two teams that cancel each other out, which make it hard for me to just predict an outright winner. So well played, Dominic. There's no away goals. So this is going to be, I think it's 1-1. So 2-2 on aggregate, goes to penalties. And I will I'll send Juve to the final just because I think they're going to have the better penalty takers if they're still on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the keepers, who's better? I mean, they're both really good goalkeepers. I think Szczesny proved in the World Cup. He's already proven in Serie A
more seasoned.
For a long time. He's more seasoned in the penalty kicks. He just gets in the mind of people. I mean, he stopped Messi. He stopped a bunch of guys. He had two. Didn't he have 2 penalty stops in one game? In one of the World Cup games. Onana's a fantastic keeper, but I think if it goes to penalties, I would back Szczesny. But it's going to be a good game overall.
The other semifinal, we've got Cremonese and Fiorentina. Fiorentina lead 2-0 on aggregate. So they have the advantage now. Cremonese has been on this incredible run. The game is at the Artemio Franchi, I should point out. So Fiorentina have the away goals. Now, we thought that the second leg in the Conference League against Lech Poznan was going to be a formality, but Fiorentina nearly found a way to screw that up. So I think, but I'm going to go and err on the side that Fiorentina learned from this, and that 1-1 seems reasonable. 2-1 Fiorentina, but either way, Fiorentina's getting to the final. I think it'd be great to see a Juve Fiorentina final for Coppa Italia.
Oh yeah, didn't we have that last year? Or maybe it wasn't. But yeah, no, that's certainly. I think it was a semifinal last year.
It was a semifinal last year.
That would be a fantastic. I think Fiorentina are certainly gonna win their game and go into the final. It should be easier than the Lech Poznan game, which they should have won easily, but they didn't. With a 2-0 lead, I don't see Cremonese scoring well. That's the thing. They can play each other equally in this game. I don't see Cremonese outscoring Fiorentina. I just don't.
Yeah.
Fiorentina gave up 2 goals this weekend, but it was still Monza. Monza is a good team versus versus Cremonese. No disrespect to them. So it's just this. It should be a formality, honestly, at this point. And I certainly think Fiorentina's going to make it there. I'm just looking at some previous stats to remind me, but Fiorentina should get this.
Yeah, that's a pretty formal thing to say. And then the games this weekend, we can talk about that real quick. Roma Milan, Inter Lazio. The
top 4.
A little bit of crossover. A huge weekend in terms of the top 4. There might be separation, or things might get even tighter.
Yeah.
Which way are you going?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I think Lazio did Inter a good one the first time around. Inter seem to be getting into a swagger though at the moment. I think Inter need to win more than Lazio need to win for sure.
But let's ask this: how will Inter be? If I'm setting a scenario where Inter are going to have to go 120 minutes in penalties with Juve, are they going to be able to have the mentality to brush that off and be ready to play Lazio for a chance to get their way back into top 4?
No, that's gonna be difficult to ask. If they go to 120 minutes and penalty kicks, that's gonna be difficult for anybody, not just Inter, anybody. But yeah, I don't know. I a lot is on the line. I mean, basically for Inter, at least in this case, they have to win out basically to get into the top 4 or win the Champions League. The latter is gonna be the harder part. Well, both are hard, right? I don't know. I think I'm gonna say that the top 4 gets tighter in the Inter Lazio game because I think Inter find a way to win.
Okay.
And I say there's separation in the other game where Milan finds a way to win against Roma. It just Milan's kicked into the gear here all of a sudden defensively, and they're scoring goals with Leao's woken up, and Roma has stumbled a little bit here. They look good in Europa League and in the league in general, but just I don't see. I fancy Milan in this game, and not just being a homer pick. I think Milan's playing really, really well at the moment. So Milan creates separation. Inter make it tighter with Lazio.
Okay, I'm on board with that. I think,
and that's the point too, right there, where Ferhat says no Dybala, no Wijnaldum, no Smalling. It's there's a lot to ask. There's a lot of injuries. I mean, Dybala, he was limping already at the Feyenoord game, and he was limping in the Atalanta game. He is injured, and they need him for the finals or semifinals.
And it's a Milan right now that are defending extremely well.
Yes, back to last year's form.
Exactly. They'll be ready for Abraham. They'll have I think they'll be able to be able to cope with what Pellegrini does from the playmaking standpoint. There's a little bit of a different dynamic that Spinazzola brings that I think Calabria can still work against. I mean, if the theory is that if Calabria can defend as well as he did against Kvaratskhelia, he should be able to cope with what Spinazzola is going to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And if he's going to have cover and he's going to have support, but I think things are going to be freed up where Kjaer and Tamori will be able to occupy Abraham. So I think the defending part of it's going to work out just fine. And then I think Milan find a way to I think they win 1-0 over Roma at the Olimpico. I think it's another one of those tight, grinded out kind of games.
Yeah.
Play it like it's a cup game and play it with that kind of mentality. I think the Inter Lazio game is a draw.
Kyle says the same thing.
So I'm with Kyle on this. I go 1-1 there. Lazio will find a way to get one. They won't drop all the points, but they'll get to 62. Milan will get to 59. Juve ought to tie Lazio on 62, so it would be 62, 62, 59. Roma on 56. Inter on 55, and then maybe Atalanta's on 55. So 5th through 7th get snug, and then there's a 3-point gap from 4th to 5th instead of being a tie. So that's where I see it happening.
Okay.
So, man, I mean, a lot of these races are so close, and we already have called it. No, Lecce Spezia, May 20th, 9 a.m. East. We're calling our shot. That's the game that's going to decide 18th. So, anyway, wow, we have exhausted it, haven't we?
We have.
As we always do. I mean,
we're exhausting, Frank. Exhaustive. Sorry, exhausted, not exhausting.
Yeah. When you got an hour and change to try to cover 20 teams, it's not easy to do, but we somehow find a way to pull it off. And let's try to lighten up the mood here a little bit with the world's most popular hashtag game, Who Won Calcio Twitter.
Let me get some music in the background just to make it a little more fun here. All right, kicking things off. Nomination from Anthony. It's a Kareem. It's football _ Kareem, and it's. Let me start from the beginning here. Get the audio here. All right, so it's Jerry Cardinal with Milan. The moment UCL money deposit hits. Jerry's gonna take the money once that Champions League money deposits.
I like that. Okay, at Alessio, this is Kier Palulu, at Alessio7. I'll see him in V Milan.
That's Niang.
And by Niang. At least, I'll see him in scored. So we can't be, that's kind of harsh, but anyway.
Yeah. All right, from Inter Germany, it's Lautaro when he realizes the next Champions League match is against Milan. He wakes up from the dead. This is true. This is going to happen.
Very true. Okay, at Saturnion 13, Real Madrid 14 Champions Leagues, Milan 7 Champions Leagues, Inter 3 Champions Leagues, Man City.
The dog. I swear I should be here. I swear I should be here.
A dog among sheep.
All right, moving on. Francesco. Italian Calcio politicians realizing they don't need to reform anything about Italian Calcio now that the excuse that an Italian club will play the Champions League final. They're all celebrating like Grosso. Oh, it's Zambrotta. Oh, my God.
Awesome. Siavush Falahi was nominated. By the way, thanks again, Anthony, for all the nominations and helping us out with this. Inter in the Champions League.
The bus is running everybody over.
Sarà una partita infinita.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, another good one here. This one comes from the big semifinalist, aka the Big Show, and it's me trying to find Napoli fans on the Twitter line after Tuesday.
This was one of my favorite scenes from The Sopranos. Phil's trying to run away from him.
God. I'm not gonna say what this is reference to, but.
So where you going? Hey Tony, I gotta meet John down the restaurant. You fucking cocksucker.
Watch the whole thing. I don't want to get a strike against it, but it's a great clip there by Big Show.
Yeah, just goes on a high-speed chase. So yes, moving on at Foot Italia 1, Roma post game.
Well, this is really Mourinho's.
Studio, we have many former champions. They will have so many questions to ask, and
so Cassano, for those who don't know, Cassano took a shot at Roma and Mourinho, in particular Mourinho, and so they asked him, obviously, studio asking all these questions. They're like, "Oh, what do you got for questions for all the champions?" And he's like, "Oh, obviously Cassano's not there because he never won a championship." So that's pretty good by Mourinho. Moving on, next nomination comes from Uncle Sharma. And it's Digibyte's directors when they closed the deal, knowing that they weren't planning to pay out 1 penny. Fucking all the
Scarface
money.
reset. We've had a Sopranos reset and a Scarface reset.
Yeah.
Nice. Bobby has nominated Napoleonismo. Oh dear Lord, what's Napoleonismo? Zidane after seeing Quadrado dribbling himself in training. That's fantastic.
That is great. That's great. Oh, if he put his face on there, it would be better. Well, speaking of kicks in the face, Vronx in training against Pobega.
Oh, jeez.
That's one way to get your starting spot.
Yeah.
Or more playing time, I should say.
Let's see. So at Nicholas_Calcio, breaking news: referee Michael Fabri has entered the courtroom to ask all Scudetti be assigned to Napoli. Okay.
This is after the performance where Juventini were upset with all the calls against them. It's pretty funny. Moving on, where are we? Okay, Anthony nominated Jerry. Okay, so Jerry gets the nomination here. He goes, Juan Cuadrado, best highlights. Cuadrado is falling on the ground. That is like Cuadrado right there, perfectly.
That is, very much.
Oh, man. All right.
All right, and let's see here. At, I think it's Nemaser.
Yeah.
Okay, describe snakes without using any words. Bonucci, Cialanoglu, and Donnarumma.
And Kessie. Kessie's there, too.
And Kessie? Oh, gosh.
That's funny. All right, that's all of them. Which one you got?
I got to go with Napoleonismo, I think. Or I can go with Nerazzurri. Which one do you like?
So there's Nerazzurri. Which one's
the Sopranos scene? Napoleonismo's the Zidane.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with this one just because Big Show might be taking a shot at somebody at the other one. I'll keep quiet about that, but yeah, let's go Napoleonissimo.
All right, he is a master at his craft. Once again, Napoleonissimo has won Who Won Calcio Twitter.
Oh my goodness!
Say some words to the people as I load this up.
All right, let me turn off the penny hill here. So if you haven't got a chance to do it yet, let me see if I can switch this over here. But recently wrote an article on what's our website called? CityOutSitDown.com, asking the question: is Calcio king once again? With 5 semifinalists in Champions League, Europa League, and the Conference League, the question needs to be asked: is Calcio back? And so, write an article going back about the last 5 years and how Calcio is really emerging. And give it a read on CityOutSitDown.com. Definitely check it out. Looking at Ferhat here in the chat, he says, "Imagine Milan, Inter wins the Champions League, Juve or Roma wins the Europa League, Fiorentina win the Conference League, and Coppa Italia winner the qualification for Champions League season will be a mess." Yeah, that's gonna be a headache. Imagine also the storylines, and we talked about this on Inter Worldwide. That imagine if we get 3, and also on football, also on low limit football. Imagine there's 3 Italian winners this year in Europe, right? Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League. And imagine an all Italian Europa League final. I mean, the possibilities. I think at least 2 titles come out of the 3. What do you think?
2 is most realistic. It's just a matter of which 2.
I say it's the Conference and Europa.
Okay, I buy that. I think it's going to be whichever Milan or Inter getting to the final. And I said on Anthony's show last week that I just think Milan are going to get to the final. I think it's going to be a bridge too far, whether it's Man City or whether it's Real Madrid, especially if it's Real Madrid, personally. And I think we laid out in that conversation, you'd rather play Man City in the final because you're playing an opponent who has a much heavier burden to win a final, to win a Champions League final, because it's the one trophy that's not in their case since the takeover and all the money that's come in. Where Real Madrid just know how to win Champions Leagues. And Fiorentina versus West Ham in the final of the Conference League.
Good possibility there.
Could be a good one. But it's still it's a good AZ Alkmaar team that Fiorentina are going to have to navigate to get to that final. So,
and for those who didn't listen to Inter Worldwide's podcast with us on it, you picked Milan to move on from the semifinal. I picked Inter. But I think we can all agree, I imagine all of us would agree, that around the world, the biggest game would probably be between Real and Milan, because you have the 2 most winningest teams in Champions League history, 2 teams with massive auras, in the Champions League. It would just be a massive occasion. Not that any other combination wouldn't be, but I just think Real versus Milan, the 2 most winningest teams in this tournament, going against each other. A current dynasty versus an old dynasty. It'd be interesting storyline, the biggest storyline. But either way, it's going to be entertaining.
A club and and its former manager returning to Istanbul to play against each other.
Yeah. Ancelotti even said he would love to play Milan in the finals. Obviously both teams have to get there first, but he would love to see that. And that would be a fitting way to maybe end his career as a club team manager. Maybe moves on to national team.
Milan getting revenge at Istanbul. What about Ancelotti getting revenge at Istanbul? He was Milan's manager in 2005 when that happened. So
that's true.
It's that would be the storylines that would come out of that is absolutely great.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I don't want to write Inter off. Nope. So
if Inter or Milan win, it will be I think a talked about game for ages if either of those clubs beat the opposition.
Agreed. Very, very much agreed. So, with all that, I think we'll put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down. We have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. There's Serie A Sit Down. You can follow me at FTC_21. You can follow Richard at R_KHARMAN. Check out the website. Check out the article, as Richard talked about. Good read, by the way. And at Serie A Sit Down on Twitter and Instagram. You can drop comments there. Who Won Calcio Twitter is just on Twitter. # Who Won Calcio Twitter. Keep it clean. Don't be offensive. Don't be a dick. Keep it funny. So, and Facebook. Yeah, we're on Facebook, but we don't check that as often. So you may not hear from us if you try us there. If you are watching us here on the YouTube channel for the first time, please subscribe. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. And click on that notification bell so that you can get alerts from us when we go live on the air. So that is it.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday,
Next
Rich
Tuesday.
guest.
Yeah, next Tuesday we'll have a guest. Actually, it might not be next Tuesday because Frank, you're out for this next one. So I will probably reach to another hemisphere for my guest, and it might not be on a Tuesday. It may be on a Sunday.
Maybe on a Sunday. Okay.
And it may be of a rival, but we'll get to that when that comes. Stay tuned on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. We'll let you know who that is.
Yep.
But yeah, you'll know the person.
Yep. I will be flying to Texas or flying home from Texas, depending on when you are having this podcast. So chat, shout out to you guys. Thank you all for coming in, chiming in, giving your comments and asking your questions and being a part of this. So I will see you in a couple of weeks. Richard will see you guys sometime next week with a guest. So
that's right.
Until then, make sure you keep telling your paisans about us. Ciao.